Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just kind of found a word on this last weekend. We got Deshaun Foster and Brent Pry being let go. A couple other games that we wanted to talk about. A number of teams that just kind of sleptwalked through this weekend. Iowa State avoids a disastrous loss to Arkansas State. But now we got to get into the winners and losers from this past weekend. A number of things to talk about in terms of the winners and losers. And we'll get into some specific teams here in a second. But elite coaching won the weekend. When you talk about the three football games that really defined this weekend, you had Georgia Tech Clemson in the early slate, you had Georgia Tennessee in the middle, and then you had obviously A&M Notre Dame to finish it out. Brent Key's ability and comfort doing the fire drill at the very end of the game, that field goal to win it, was downright special. And it's something that a coach doesn't do well unless he's an elite coach and unless his team fully trusts him. They do over there in Atlanta. There's no two ways about that. That is I tweeted it out. That's one of the top 10 coaches in the entire country. No promises that he's going to do downright special things the rest of the year, but this guy has his teams ready in big time moments, and they play their best football against some of these big time teams. Elite coach that did elite things on Saturday. Kirby Smart maybe coached the best game in a while, if I'm being totally honest, in Knoxville. Had to handle the offensive line being all over the place in a number of different ways. Had to make defensive adjustments against an offense that's an absolute nightmare to deal with, and did an incredible job doing that. And he had a quarterback coming in there making his very first start. You let it rip. You told Mike Bobo to absolutely let it rip in this football game, and he did, and Gunnar Stockton did. It was downright special to watch, and it absolutely won them that football game. Texas A&M. Mike Oko didn't do anything downright special. They put themselves in a great position to win that football game, and Marcus Freeman, nothing necessarily against that decision, but maybe a punter being your holder would be a good idea going forward. But at the end of the day, coaching is going to win football games this year. It is absolutely a year where you don't have a dominant team. You don't even have a dominant player like you had with Cam Ward a year ago. So you're in a position where execution, where the quote-unquote boring stuff is going to win a lot of football games, where you have to have elite coaching, you have to make adjustments at halftime, you have to find a way to rotate guys in and out with the long season that you're going to deal with, and you got to find a way to put your quarterbacks in winning situations. That's exactly what these three head coaches did. That's exactly what a lot of coaches did, even on the other side of these football games, but they had to find a way to get a little bit better coaching in those football games, and Brent Key did it. Kirby Smart did it, and Mike Elko did it during this game, and a lot of other teams that just found their way through a little bit tough moments with some great coaching this past weekend. So I think coaching is going to be the defining feature of this season. It always is in college football, but this year maybe more than most. The loser is any SEC clarity you wanted to have. I don't know what's going to happen with this conference. It is all over the place. I think it's fair to say Georgia is the number one team moving forward, but A&M, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Bama, all looking very, very good right now. LSU is the number two team in the conference. It's razor thin between them and the rest of the field. They are not necessarily playing elite football on the offensive side of the ball now. I would pretty comfortably put them at 2, but I would have A&M or Tennessee right behind them, Bama, Oklahoma. These teams are really, really interesting. And then you have a Texas team that has not put it together yet. If they put it together, they absolutely are going to be a dangerous team, especially offensively if they put it together, because that defense is going to play at a championship level. Vandy looks very dangerous this year. Mississippi State looks like a dangerous team. This conference is going to get really weird. There's going to be a 9-3 team in the CFP, probably from the SEC, whether it's Texas or Oklahoma or Bama or Georgia, I don't know. It's going to be a weird conference, and I don't think there's going to be a clear cookie-cutter order unless maybe Georgia rolls through their schedule, which I'm not necessarily betting on them to do. So a lot of different things that are going to happen this year in the SEC. I felt not super confident picking that back in early August. I'd probably feel just as unconfident picking it right now. So it's a very weird conference that I think is going to get plenty weirder. The winner is the Miami Hurricanes. They look like the one team in the country that has played truly clean football through three games. Even a team like Ohio State did not play clean football on Saturday until the very last quarter, so they got a lot of things to figure out. This team is just rolling through teams. They look very straightforward. They're running the ball very efficiently. Carson Beck is not making the mistakes he did a year ago, and they do have the big win over Notre Dame and another ranked win over South Florida. Carson Beck looks like him again, which is really the big-time thing, probably because the offensive line is downright incredible for Miami. where Georgia last year just wasn't all that great at times. So the running back group is special, led by Mark Fletcher. The wide receiver core continues to prove themselves week after week. Still have some concerns in big games, but throughout their schedule, I think they're going to be more than fine with the group that they have. That Florida State game is going to be awesome to watch between those two teams, but it's going to be awesome to see what they can do going forward. Obviously, we talked about it earlier. It's Florida, bye week, FSU, bye week, Louisville. You win those 3 games, you are firmly in the mix to go undefeated, to be the number 1 team in the country going into the CFP. Obviously, quite a bit of work to do, and Mario Cristobal's got to earn that. There's no doubt about that, but I think they're in really good shape. They got to find, even if they lose one of those games, whether it's FSU or Louisville or Florida, I think they're okay. They just got to find a way to walk a little bit of a tightrope the rest of the way. As of right now, they'd probably be my number 1 team in the country. They look clean as can be and are running this thing incredibly efficiently. QB talent was a loser this past weekend. There were a lot of quarterbacks that coming into the season, I would have told you, and just about everyone would have told you, they were the best quarterbacks in the country. Arch Manning, I think I had at 10 coming into the season. Didn't want to give him too much, but the ability was very, very clear coming into the season. It hasn't showed up. There's no two ways about that. I don't know what to make of it. We'll see how that develops, but a very weird time over there in Austin. DJ Lagway, 5 picks this past weekend. Does not look the part. Did not practice a ton this offseason and really throughout last year, so not all that surprising, but he doesn't even look like the way he looked last year. So a lot of things to figure out there. Cade Klubnik did not look very great against Tech, obviously. And Garrett Nussmeier, not necessarily rolling right now. Less worried about him than the rest of these guys because of who he is and how experienced he is, but at the end of the day, still not necessarily to the level that he wants to play. To me, it'll work itself out. I do think there will be elite quarterbacks that do kind of come to fruition. I think Drew Aller will play higher level football. I think Garrett Nussmeier will. I think a couple of these other guys, maybe Arch Manning will find it. Very questionable there, but we'll see what happens. The Heisman race is wide open, I guess is the best way to put it. There is not a quarterback that has taken downright control of this thing, and this time last year, I think you could have said Cam Ward is in very, very good shape moving forward, as is a guy like Ashton Genty, as is a guy like Travis Hunter. But at the end of the day, any quarterback could win it as of right now. Arch Manning could turn a corner and win the Heisman Trophy. I don't think he's going to do that. I want to make that very, very clear. But at the end of the day, the way it's open right now and the number of quarterbacks that are not playing elite football week to week, everything's still on the table for the Heisman Trophy this year. The winner is the Tulane Green Wave. Tulane gets a big-time win over Duke, and they saw South Florida lose their footing just a little bit. It is something that they absolutely needed if they wanted to be on even footing with them moving forward. I don't know if it's outright even footing, but it's relatively close. They go to Ole Miss this upcoming weekend. That would be the one. If they find a way to win that football game, they would be in great, great shape moving forward, and it would be very, very interesting to see what happened. Now, every time we talk about Tulane and USF and really the Group of 5 conversation as a whole, they could play in the American title. So it could just come down to one game at the very end of this thing, regardless of what happens the rest of the way. Obviously, they have to win the American games, but at the end of the day, these two teams could just be playing for a CFP spot, and if so, that'd be downright special to watch. Losers, top 25 teams with quote-unquote layups this past weekend. Texas, Ohio State, Iowa State, Penn State, and a number of others. Utah did not look the part this past weekend. They looked a little bit shaky at times. Now, teams like Texas and maybe Penn State to a certain degree haven't really looked good this year. So a lot of things to figure out there. Utah, Iowa State, Ohio State, they've looked the part earlier. I'm not super worried about those football teams moving forward now. Ohio State's win over Texas doesn't look as good as it did a little bit ago, but we'll see how that develops. It'll be really interesting to see what happens later in the season. I think we all understand at this point, this happens. There's going to be moments where these teams sleepwalk through a game or they don't exactly look the part, they don't exactly look confident, but they'll find their way through. There's always going to be elite teams at the end of the year. Maybe not like Georgia good or Alabama good, but absolutely going to be elite teams and find a way to get into the CFP and give us great matchups going forward. Overall, not super worried about those football teams. Fairly worried about Texas. I think would be the team that I would circle there, but this happens all the time. It's just not a great week for these elite teams that had quite a bit of a spread coming into this weekend. The winner is the ACC Challengers, and to be more specific, Louisville, Georgia Tech, and Cal, because the ACC got a little bit cleaned up this past weekend. Georgia Tech's win over Clemson obviously does help that. You kind of, I don't want to say knock Clemson out of the race, but put them in a really bad spot moving forward. You have Pitt really struggle and lose. You had Duke struggle and lose. You had Virginia Tech get absolutely rolled. You had SMU struggle with Missouri State. So you have an ACC that's absolutely wide open. Obviously, you would start with Miami and Florida State at the very top, but who knows? Maybe Cal and Georgia Tech can make something interesting here. Maybe Louisville can put it all together with Miller Moss and be able to turn a corner. And there's a world where we have Cal and Georgia Tech playing in Charlotte at the end of the year. I wouldn't bet on it, but it could happen, and a lot of things open for the ACC this past weekend. And then finally, the loser is the AP poll. This thing stinks in a number of different ways. I really hope the CFP doesn't take anything from this because it is rough. Texas is way too high in my opinion. I don't know why they're number 8 in the country. They should probably be around number 18 or 16 if I'm being totally honest. USC, why are they in there over Mississippi State and South Florida? I don't understand that. I get South Florida lost this past weekend. They probably should have been higher going into the weekend, so they didn't get unranked, but terrible. Notre Dame shouldn't be ranked. I get that's a good football team. I think they're going to be more than fine. I think they'll probably go 9-3 or 10-2. That's not a top 25 football team right now. They're not playing good defense. The offense is good, but at moments does miss the mark. I don't think that's a team that should be in the top 25. I get the argument for them to be in the top 25, but you're 0-2. You lost 2 games, one of which is at home. They should not be in that thing. I'm going to start with my rankings next week. I tend to believe it should start after week 4, so that's how I'm going to look at it. After week 4 and we'll break down all of the stuff that I think in the top 25 right now. It's not going to look like the AP poll. I can tell you that pretty confidently right now. There are a number of things that I disagree with very vehemently, including maybe the number 1 team. But we'll break it all down at next week, and I will give you my top 25 team top 25 poll moving forward in the season. We will do that every single week, but we'll start at the end of next week. Incredible weekend, a special weekend with a number of special games. We had 3 big games going into this weekend, and they all delivered. But thank you so much for listening. That's another edition of Just Another College Football Podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment. It means the absolute world to me. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you guys next time.